Welcome back to Remember the Book, the place where stories never really end. Today, we open another page and bring a modern thriller back into the light, The Housemaid, by Freida McFadden. Let's begin. The story opens in the present, with Millie sitting on an absurdly expensive leather sofa in the Winchester's living room, while police officers move around the house and talk about the dead body they've just found in the attic. She knows they're a few seconds away from reading her rights, and she keeps thinking that if she ever leaves this house, it'll be in handcuffs. From that tension, the book jumps back and slowly shows how she ended up in this perfect, rich suburban nightmare. Millie Calloway is in her 20s, freshly out of prison and living in her car. She's eating cheap sandwiches on the back seat, showering in disgusting public rest stops, and trying to keep her parole officer from finding out she's technically homeless, because that alone could send her back to jail. She has a criminal record that follows her everywhere. Much later, we'll learn the full story. As a teenager in a disciplinary boarding school, her heard her friend being assaulted in a boys' dorm room. Millie went in, grabbed a heavy paperweight, and smashed the attacker's skull repeatedly. He died. She took a plea to manslaughter because the photographs made it impossible to sell it as anything but lethal force, and because there had been other violent incidents in her past, breaking a boy's arm off the monkey bars, slashing a teacher's tires, punching a coworker after her release. So she's both victim and dangerous, capable of real violence, even if it's mostly in defense. At this point, though, nobody will hire her. Even Munch Burgers, a greasy fast food joint that supposedly takes people with records, calls to tell her they filled the position. Just when that hope dies, her ancient flip phone rings again. This time, it's something different, a high-end housekeeping/nanny job in a wealthy Long Island home. The woman who interviewed her days ago, Nina Winchester, has decided to hire her. This is Millie's lifeline: a room, regular meals, good pay, and a chance to build a new life. Millie drives her dented Nissan into a town full of luxury SUVs and manicured lawns. The Winchesters live in a huge, expensive house with a gated driveway, a home theater, a designer kitchen, and a perfectly landscaped garden. This is a world of PTA moms, fertility specialists, private school tuition, and Italian leather sofas. It screams money and status. Outside, she briefly meets Enzo, the Italian gardener. He tries to warn her about something in broken English. "You get out, it's dangerous." But Nina appears at the door before he can elaborate, and the warning gets swallowed. Nina Winchester is beautiful, blonde, put together, and at first glance charmingly scattered. She has a little daughter, Cecilia, Cece, all lace dresses and pale hair, who looks like she stepped out of some Victorian portrait, but acts like an ice-cold, sullen, weirdly adult child. Nina gives Millie the house tour, laying out the rules: cooking, cleaning, laundry, picking up Cece from her private school, keeping the house immaculate. And then she shows her room. Not a cozy guest room, but a tiny bedroom in the attic with a bolted door on the outside. The space is cramped, hot, the light is bad, and there's a subtle sense that this door has been locked on someone before. Nina jokes about the attic, brushes away questions, and insists it's the only space that makes sense, because the guest room is for her in-laws. From the beginning, there's a gothic vibe: the rich, polished house below, the creepy attic room above, the young maid with a secret past, the perfect blonde wife, the charming absent husband, the gardener who sees everything but says nothing. Millie moves in anyway. It's still better than her car. At first, Millie genuinely tries. She gets up early, scrubs every surface until it shines, does laundry, cooks balanced meals, and tries to bond with Cece. She even manages to pick Cecilia up from the Windsor Academy, a private school that looks like Hogwarts for rich kids, although Nina gives her the wrong school name at first and then acts like it's Millie's fault when there's confusion. The other PTA moms recognize her immediately as the new maid and casually gossip about Nina's mental health, calling her high-strung, hinting she's literally nuts, making comments about her history with a psychiatric hospital. Inside the house, Nina starts wobbling between fake sweetness and cruelty. She leaves messes everywhere, dirty dishes, spilled liquids, clothes scattered everywhere, and then explodes when something isn't done exactly right. She gives Millie confusing instructions, then claims Millie misunderstood. She forgets that she asked Millie to pick Cece up, letting another mom call her in front of everyone so Nina can play the perfectionist employer with a clueless maid. She starts to undermine Millie socially, talking to other women about how hard it is to find someone good while Millie is in earshot. At night, Millie discovers she's not really welcome outside the attic. There's a scene where she sneaks down in a t-shirt to watch TV, thinking everyone's asleep, only to find Nina wide awake on the sofa staring at her, then telling her coldly that the rest of the house is for my family and she must stay upstairs after bedtime. Millie senses something is wrong, but she tries to rationalize it. Nina is stressed. Nina has mental health issues. Nina is lonely. She needs this job. She has to put up with it. When Andrew Winchester finally appears, he initially looks like the sane one in the house. He's handsome, successful, polite. He thanks Millie for her work, defends her when Nina criticizes her unfairly, apologizes for his wife's moods, and tells Millie that Nina has had a rough time. He quietly hints that Nina has a history of mental illness, including an incident years ago when she supposedly tried to drown baby Cecilia and kill herself. Later, another mom, Amanda, repeats that story. Nina drugged Cece, put her in the tub, took pills herself, and the police barely arrived in time. Andrew, the devoted husband, called them and saved both. From Millie's perspective, the picture that forms is Nina is unstable, dangerous, possibly violent. Andrew is tired, patient, trapped with a crazy wife, trying to protect his daughter. Meanwhile, Cece is odd. She's often rude to Millie, lies casually, and says unsettling things. She mentions drawings and a lady in the attic, insists her mother has done terrible things, but also seems terrified of her father in small, quick flashes. The child is a product of the environment, either spoiled, traumatized, or both. Millie starts to identify emotionally with Andrew. She sees him as another victim of Nina, someone who also deserves better. He looks at her kindly, listens to her, and becomes the only normal adult in a house where the wife is unpredictable and the kid is chilling. The dynamic crystallizes. Nina torments Millie. Andrew comforts her. Cece watches. Nina's cruelties escalate in a very calculated way. She destroys Millie's sense of competence. Millie spends hours cleaning the kitchen until it looks like brand new. Nina comes in, trashes everything, pulls out dishes, throws pots on the floor, spills milk everywhere, and then accuses Millie of losing her PTA notes, pretending they were on the counter and now have mysteriously vanished. In reality, the notes are safe on Nina's computer. It's pure performance designed to blame Millie. She sabotages Millie socially and professionally, making sure everyone sees her as incompetent. She sets her up to fail with school pickup, messes with schedules, skips giving essential information, and then scolds her for mixing things up, while other moms nod in sympathy and talk about how hard it is to find decent help. Then, one night at dinner, Nina casually drops the nuclear bomb. She reveals Millie's criminal past in front of Andrew. She smiles sweetly and says, "I'm sure you never got food like this in prison, did you, Millie?" Andrew is stunned. Millie wants to disappear. Nina wants that exact humiliation. She wants Millie to remember she's a convict, that she doesn't belong in this pristine house, that she's lucky to be here at all. At the same time, Nina keeps pushing this idea of future pregnancies and fertility treatments, talking loudly about wanting another baby, about needing to keep her hottie husband happy, about gaining weight and letting her hair roots show. Her friends gossip behind her back, saying she's getting like a house, wondering why she ever signed a prenup that leaves her practically nothing if they divorce. So we have a woman acting like she doesn't care about her looks anymore, totally dependent on a controlling husband with an airtight prenup, rumored to be mentally ill, surrounded by people who think she should do whatever it takes to keep him. On the surface, it looks like Nina is simply falling apart. In reality, we'll later find out she's doing it on purpose. Nina tightens control of Millie's physical space. The attic room becomes less of a bedroom and more of a cell. The door locks on the outside. Millie gradually notices that she can't truly leave at night. She's trapped upstairs while the family moves freely below. There are vibes of a previous occupant, someone else who lived, suffered, maybe screamed behind that door. Andrew continues to confide in her. He frames Nina's behavior as part of her illness, the mess, the cruelty, the contradictions, the forgetfulness, the erratic mood swings. He plays the considerate employer and the noble husband trying to cope. Millie begins to fall for him a little. Nothing explicit at first, but there's attraction, glances, a sense of emotional intimacy. You can see how easily this could become an affair. Young, desperate maid, older, powerful man, unhinged wife. Nina sees it too. She pushes Millie further, humiliating her, making her life unbearable, so that Millie will both hate Nina and unconsciously gravitate towards Andrew as her ally. From Millie's POV, this is just a spiral she's trying to survive. She needs a few more paychecks, she can't go back to prison, she can't afford to quit, and she keeps telling herself she can handle it. Part 2. Nina's point of view. The real monster. At about the halfway point, the book flips into Nina's perspective, and the main twist hits. Nina is not the crazy one. Andrew is. Through Nina's chapters, we learn the real history of this marriage. She fell in love with Andrew like everyone else does. He was charming, generous, good-looking, a successful lawyer from a rich family. They had Cece, and for a while, things were fine. Then the control crept in. He monitored what she ate, what she wore, who she saw. He isolated her from friends and family, making himself the center of her world. He punished her for tiny infractions, using subtle threats, and then escalated physical dominance. The attic was originally her prison. When she displeased him, he locked her up there, rationed her food, used surveillance cameras to watch her like an animal in a cage. In one particularly horrible piece of backstory, Nina remembers being forced to stand for hours holding heavy objects, with Andrew watching via a camera app, making sure she never sat, punishing her for every perceived failure. This reframes the whole house. The attic room isn't a quirky maid's room, it's a torture chamber. The high-tech cameras and security systems aren't about safety, they're about surveillance and control. Andrew's concern about mental illness is actually a narrative he built to discredit Nina. That story everyone repeats, that Nina tried to drown baby Cecilia and overdose, suddenly becomes suspect. From Nina's side, we realize how much of her public image has been scripted by Andrew. He's built an entire persona for her as the unstable wife. He's the hero who saved his daughter. That's the version the town believes. Nina, completely controlled and legally trapped by a prenup and by Andrew's status, reaches a point where she knows she can't just walk away. If she tries to leave, he'll take Cecilia and destroy her. If she kills him herself, she'll almost certainly go to prison or worse. And Enzo, the gardener who sees everything, would kill Andrew for her, but then he would go to prison, and she doesn't want that either. So she comes up with Plan B. Nina decides she needs 1. A woman beautiful and young enough for Andrew to want. 2. Desperate enough to accept any conditions. 3. Someone who'd no kids and no leverage he can use to trap her. 4. Someone who is capable of real violence. Enter Millie. Nina secretly hires a private investigator, recommended by Enzo, to look into Millie Calloway. That's how she learns the boarding school story. The dead football player, the broken arm, the slashed tires, the punched coworker. She realizes Millie is not just desperate, she's dangerous when pushed. So she deliberately picks Millie as the new housemaid replacement bait. She wants Andrew to see Millie as the new her, attractive, younger, fertile, obedient. She wants him to fall into his usual pattern, flirt, groom, then trap. And she wants Millie, once she experiences the attic and his cruelty, to do what Nina physically and psychologically can't anymore: kill him. Nina fully admits this in her own mind. I hired her to kill him. She just doesn't know it. All the things Millie thought were evidence of Nina's madness are actually staged. The messes, the theatrically destroyed kitchen and the fake lost PTA notes, part of pushing Millie to hate her. The extra weight, the visible roots, the overeating at the PTA party, making herself less desirable to Andrew and feeding her friends the Nina's a mess narrative. The cruel, cutting comments at dinner, including outing Millie's prison time in front of Andrew, pushing Millie towards the husband, away from her. Nina also manipulates the logistics.
She insists the only place Millie can sleep is the attic, the same room where she was once locked up herself. So Andrew will start making that association. Woman in attic equals problem. Wife downstairs equals replaceable. She even plants tools for later. A bottle of pepper spray hidden in a cleaning bucket, a key to the attic room for Millie, subtle hints about the house's layout, and a constant stream of pressure. It's incredibly cold and strategic. But, from Nina's perspective, she's trapped with a sadist who uses her child as leverage. She feels she has no other escape. The perspective shifts back to Millie, and now we're watching the plan play out from her side, without her knowing it's a plan. At some point, Andrew's mask slips. Once he's sure Millie is attached to him and isolated from Nina, he locks Millie in the attic room, just like he once did with Mina. The door that was just for privacy is suddenly a prison door. The small, overheated room becomes unbearable. He controls her movements and watches her through a camera, which he proudly shows her on his phone like it's a toy. He starts ordering her to perform pointless, degrading tasks for hours, like holding something heavy while he monitors in real time. If she disobeys, he punishes her. This is the real Andrew, not the charming lawyer, but the calculating tormentor who likes to break people and keep them under total control. Millie realizes she's made a catastrophic mistake. She's not the outsider observing a broken marriage. She's the new prisoner. She also realizes something else. Nina was telling a different story with her behavior. The cruelty, the rules, even the worst insults suddenly looked like small, desperate attempts to maneuver something invisible. The real danger is Andrew. Because Nina has already slipped her the tools, Millie eventually reaches in her pocket and finds that bottle of pepper spray planted in the cleaning bucket. And she keeps that key to the attic room in mind, even while Andrew thinks he's the one in control. The confrontation comes to a head in the attic. Andrew thinks he still has Millie broken, but she's reached her limit. When he gets close enough, she sprays pepper spray directly into his eyes, at point-blank range, not once, but twice. He screams, blinded and disoriented, and she uses that window to fight back. The actual mechanics of how she incapacitates and kills him are brutal. It's a physical fight in a small, enclosed, already haunted space. Millie is not a trained killer, but she's been violent before, and she's fighting for her life. By the time it's over, Andrew is dead on the attic floor. But that's only the start of the cover-up. Together, Nina and Millie staged the scene so it wouldn't look like straightforward murder. One of the most chilling details: Andrew's teeth are removed with pliers. Later at his funeral, Nina stares at his mutilated face in the casket and thinks, nobody yanks their own teeth out with pliers, not willingly. It's the one detail that could expose them. Then we get this cold, unforgettable moment with Evelyn Winchester, Andrew's mother. She speaks casually about how when Andrew was a boy, she used dental pain and forced tooth pulling as punishment. If you don't take care of your teeth, then you lose the privilege to have teeth. She admits she once pulled Mav his baby teeth out with pliers to teach him a lesson. And she says she's glad Nina finally taught him another lesson. It's a horrifying reveal. Andrew didn't become a monster in a vacuum. He grew up with a mother who equated abuse with discipline. And now that he's dead, she tacitly understands what's happened and chooses not to expose Nina. She walks out of the funeral home, leaving Nina behind, effectively granting her silent approval and ensuring the story will stay as accident or suicide. The police investigation that framed the prologue comes into focus. They find the body in the attic, they question Millie, they suspect something is off, but Andrew's death is ultimately ruled accidental. Millie somehow manages to get Millie paid a full year's salary as a lump sum transfer soon afterward, money that Millie lives off of for almost a year. The plan worked, horribly, but it worked. Nina moves to California with Cecilia. They send Millie a selfie months later from a sunlit beach, mother and daughter, tanned and smiling, with a simple text, "Thank you for this." In the epilogue, time has passed. Millie is trying to put her life back together. She hasn't held a steady job since the Winchester house, just odd gigs and living off that mysterious lump sum Nina sent her. Now she's at another job interview as a housekeeper and nanny, this time for Lisa Killefer, a well-off woman with a newly renovated high-tech kitchen and clearly plenty of money. Lisa's almost unnervingly enthusiastic about hiring her. Millie didn't even apply. Lisa found her through an online ad where Millie offered cleaning and nanny services. The salary is great, the house is fancy, and at first it seems like a normal job. Then Lisa casually says something that hits Millie like a shock. Nina Winchester recommended you very highly. Millie hadn't heard from Nina in a long time, apart from that beach selfie and thank you text. The idea that Nina is quietly recommending her for housekeeping jobs feels like another layer of gratitude, or like Nina is passing along a certain skill set. As they talk, Lisa fidgets with the block of kitchen knives, easing one blade up just enough for it to glint in the light. Millie feels a little tense. Then she notices something else, a dark purple bruise on her upper arm in the clear shape of fingers. On the fridge, there's a photo of Lisa with a tall, stocky man. It's not hard to imagine his hand wrapped around her arm, digging in. In that moment, Millie understands exactly why Nina recommended her to this woman. Nina knows what Millie is capable of. She knows Millie has now survived and ended one dangerous man. Lisa looks at her and asks, almost pleading, "Can you help me, Millie?" And Millie, who has gone from ex-con, desperate maid, to someone who has now killed a monster and gotten away with it, answers, "Yes, I believe I can." The book closes on that note, half rescue fantasy, half chilling implication that Millie has become a sort of freelance avenger inside rich, abusive households, someone that women like Nina and Lisa quietly send to each other when they need help escaping a man the system will never really protect them from. Chronologically, the story walks you through 1. Millie's desperation and criminal past, living in her car, hiding the truth from her parole officer, the boarding school manslaughter, the pattern of violent incidents, her reputation as a convict. 2. The wealthy suburban prison, the Winchester house as a status symbol and a cage, the attic as a literal prison cell disguised as a maid's room, cameras, locks, schedules, and social performances as tools of control. 3. The false narrative of the crazy wife. Town gossip about Nina being nuts and having been a mental institution. The drowning overdose story told as a fact to Millie, framing Andrew as a hero. 4. The real monster and the long con. Andrew's sadism, use of the attic and surveillance app, Nina's slow, brutal realization she can't escape him through normal means, the deliberate choice to hire someone like Millie and engineer an affair and then a murder. 5. The killing and the moral ambiguity. Millie killing Andrew in self-defense, but also as the weapon Nina chose. The stage scene, the teeth pulled with pliers, Evelyn's twisted approval, the death being ruled accidental, Nina's quiet financial reward to Millie. 6. The news cycle. Nina and Cecilia happy in California, sending thanks. Lisa's bruises, Nina's recommendation, Millie's, "Yes, I believe I can." The tone of the whole book is very domestic and claustrophobic. The horror is not supernatural, it's in class, gender, and power. A rich man who can lock women in his attic and still be seen as a respectable husband and father. A town that gossips about the wife's craziness but never questions his version. A system that gave Millie a record but has no real answer for men like Andrew. By the end, Millie has gone from prey to predator, but in a morally complicated way. She's still the girl who killed to defend someone once. The difference now is that someone has decided to weaponize that side of her against men that the world won't touch. We close this chapter for now, but the story remains. If you want to keep bringing forgotten books back into the light, subscribe and stay with me for the next one. And if there's a book you want us to revisit or summarize, drop it in the comments. Until next time, see you soon.